All right, you guys. So we are going to be digging right into the second topic of tonight from moi. And we're going to be getting into the details around objectivity, subjectivity, how those relate to logic and emotion. And, you know, I think it's a funny story. I don't know if everyone thinks it's a funny story, but we were on stream the other night on the TrueCrime talk show, and, you know, a topic got brought up that I had said that, you know, I'm hyper logical, which I am to a fault, and Malia is more subjective, actually, is what I said, and I think you responded saying...
No, you said emotional.
Okay, I might have. I just don't remember exactly what I said, but it could be. And you know, it was taken like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you would say that. And I think it has to do a lot with the idea that, you know, men like to call women emotional. And I meant it as a compliment. But it got my brain going, though. So, because I meant it as a compliment where, like, I'm logical to a fault, meaning I miss a lot of things because I'm too logical. And so I did pull some evidence around that, some evidence on why it's not beneficial to be logical, even though there's this idea in the true crime community that, like, oh, the only thing that matters is objectivity and logic. And that is not true. I have never seen that. I think that, yes, objectivity when you're doing an investigation is number one, but that's not discounting subjectivity. I think subjectivity is like an added benefit and or power to objectivity, and I also don't think that one is better than the other. Now, part of the reason why I'm bringing this up is because a lot of times I wonder if everyone's on the same page when we're talking about objectivity and subjectivity, and you know, clearly on the stream, when I said that you're more emotion-driven, that's what I said, you're more emotion-driven, a lot of people were like, thinking that was a bad thing, and that's not at all.
Yeah, and
it's the opposite.
I know that you meant it as a compliment, and I didn't take it wrong. I think it's my fault, honestly, that it was taken wrong, because I spoke up and said, well, I'm also very logical too, and only because I already, like, I just knew that might be a thing, and I feel like that made people think that I was offended by it when I was not, because I know what he's saying. I know he doesn't think that I'm just like a dumb emotional woman or anything. You know what I mean? Like, that's the whole idea behind it. Like, oh, women, they only make decisions through their emotions. They don't, you know, use their brains and actually think.
Yeah.
I know he doesn't mean that. I know that he doesn't think about me that way for a fact. I know that. But I just wanted to speak up for myself and say that, and I said it with the intention of, I think that a balance of logic and emotion are the ideal, because I do think they're both important, and that could also transfer over to subjectivity and objectivity. There's a balance.
Yeah, I want to be clear, though. I don't agree with that, because I don't think there is an ideal. I think that people that are like hyper logical to a fault, to where they're missing the raw connection between human beings and unable to look at evidence and understand, like, how that evidence could be perceived socially, which sometimes allows you to make objective connections to how that evidence got there and why it got there, which is why subjectivity is important, the how behind things. But I think that if you're hyper logical or very heavily objective, you got to be able to know where your weaknesses are and cater to those weaknesses. And that's just as successful as having a well-rounded person, and just as successful as somebody who, there are people out there that are overly emotional, and there are people out there that will always look at the subjective matter in any situation, and that is not bad. That is not any worse than someone that's well-rounded, as long as you understand that and you're able to adapt in other ways.
As long as you're aware of it. And yeah, I didn't say that it's ideal because, like, to put the other down, because I think part of this is inherent, and you can't exactly change it, but you can mitigate and adjust.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. So I do want to give a shout out with this, though, because so while that happened on stream, I had already been planning on talking about another topic that's related to this. So I think this is probably part one, and I'm going to do another part two to it also. That's a little bit more in depth, but just give a shout out to Greg, and you'll know who you are, Greg, you know, based on what we're talking about here. So I appreciate you shouting this out. But all right, let's get into it. So what do objectivity and subjectivity mean? So objective means verifiable information based on facts and evidence. Subjective means information or perspectives based on feelings, opinions, emotions of the subject. And a good example of that would be like, the subjective would be, Brian Koberger did this crime because he's an incel.
Yeah.
And weird. Okay?
And he hates women.
Yeah. Where the objective of that would be, Brian Koberger is an incel because he hasn't had a relationship with a woman in the last 5 years. So, yeah. But when I think of that, I see benefit in both of those, okay? And why I see that too is that when we see cases go from investigation to the courtroom, no matter what anybody says, subjectivity is in everything. And another example of that is because so bias is subjective.
Yeah.
So everybody has bias. Therefore, everybody is subjective in the way that they're looking at their objective data.
Yes.
Just like when you're looking at that objective data, okay, let's say I have a computer in front of me and Malia has a computer in front of me, and we both are looking for the same evidence, okay? And let's just continue using Koberger here. Let's say we're trying to find the knife, the murder weapon, okay? My subjectivity is going to cause me to look in certain areas, where Malia's subjectivity is going to cause her to search in different areas. So while we're both searching for objective data to back an argument to further, you know, the evidence that we're looking for here, our subjectivity is going to cause us to look in different areas.
It informs our decisions.
Correct. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. And I don't know if everyone understands that. And that's why, you know, our community gives me so much good information that any chance I get any opportunity where I can share additional information to continue further that, I think is a win. You know what I mean? Yeah,
maybe. Yeah, I mean, I think what you meant by what you said is that I am more subjective than you and you are more objective, is basically what you were saying.
Yeah, that's the same thing as saying, you know, so logic gets paired with objectivity all the time, even though they're two different things. Emotion gets paired with subjectivity all the time, even though they're two different things.
It's the social construct of the word emotional when saying it about a woman that makes it
Yeah, absolutely.
way.
Absolutely. And that's another good point too, is that there's two definitions always.
Yeah.
Always. There's the social definition and there's the dictionary definition. And what's funny is the dictionary definition of words are objective, whereas the social definition are subjective. So like when I was researching this and how I could have explained it better when I was on the True Crime Talk Show is talking about the fact that you can't have one without the other. This is like a yin and yang situation. So I know I've said this before when we're on the show, but I'll say it again. Like, if Malia wasn't here to tie me into reality, I don't think our show would be as successful as it is because I lose my connection with people when I'm digging in the way that I do into like objective data and things like that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, and again, one is not better than the other. Just for whatever reason, I'm like this. It's not something you get to decide to do. I mean, you can choose to look at things more objectively, but a lot of it is inherent in you. You know what I mean?
It's literally genetics a lot of times.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, it's probably part of my ADHD, and that for most people, being objective takes more energy from your brain and body than it does being subjective, because subjective are led by emotions, whereas human beings tend to run off of emotions on autopilot, okay? And for whatever reason, I do think it could have to do with my ADHD. I'm not really sure. But emotions, I don't run on autopilot with my emotions. And I think it has to do with how quick my brain goes because of my ADHD. So whereas most people, it takes less energy to be subjective because emotions are automatic, for me it takes less energy to be objective. At least that's how I feel. But then my brain never turns off. Like, if I'm trying to, like, people that had a hard day work, you know, and they just want to, like, chill, I can't. Like, my brain doesn't turn off. I have to do things that keep me thinking. A lot of times it's putting on, like, a TV show, but I'm not really watching what's going on in the TV show. I'm, you know, thinking of other problems and things like that. But...
Sounds exhausting.
I mean, I like it.
It sounds exhausting.
I like it. But, all right, so here's a definition of objective. So, objective means not influenced by personal feelings or opinions in considering or representing facts. An objective person refers to a viewpoint or approach that is unbiased, impartial, and based on facts and verifiable evidence.
It's like Spock.
Verifiable evidence.
Spock from Star Trek. He is the most objective being in the universe.
He thinks he's objective. He does. Because he's half human. So, I
know there's some issues there. I know. I've seen it. But.
Yeah. So, definition of subjective. So, subjective means based on or influenced by personal feelings, tastes, or opinions. A lot of people don't realize that when we're speaking theory, when we're coming up with think tank ideas, when we're sharing our opinions, those are the subjective takes on objective data. And you literally can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
So, where was I? A subjective perspective can also be called a personal perspective or individual point of view. Subjective views do not have to be provable or grounded in fact, though they may incorporate the facts. Being able to tell the difference between objective and subjective information will make you a better communicator and investigator, decision maker, and problem solver. Depending on what investigation or case you're in, you may lean more heavily on one type of the information rather than the other. So there are some cases out there where you're better off looking at things from a subjective lens than objective.
Wait, And you just explained how?
Social interaction, okay?
Okay, so like getting a read off of people.
Getting a read off of people, building a character profile of a person, a behavior profile, that requires subjective knowledge of people. So like sociology is subjective, psychology is subjective. So yes, there can be very heavily subjective topics when you're trying to identify who the suspect is. And subjectivity is not factual data that can be pulled from a book. That's why when people build behavior profiles on serial killers, they vary. You go to one expert, their profile is going to be this. You go to another expert, their profile could be mostly the same with slight differences. It's because those are subjective approaches.
Yeah.
So again, there's a ton of benefit there. And part of the reason I want to talk about this because I think that people need to look at it different. I think that people need to stop looking at cases and the way that people investigate and think that only objectivity sells it. And I'll give a reason. Once I'm done selling the point here on the difference between subjectivity and objectivity, there's literal evidence where objectivity can end up being bad. So
that's literally like the case we just talked about. They didn't build the personal connection and they went the objective route and tested all the DNAs.
Exactly.
Of everybody connected and then overlooked literally one of the closest people to the case.
Exactly.
And it was all an emotional inner circle, possessive, jealous rage type thing.
Yep.
And they were looking for a serial killer or the girl who they considered the one that, got around or something, it was, which I guess that was a subjective decision, but it was definitely way more objective.
Yep.
That's the route they were going, was more objective.
It says here that, which again, I think this is a benefit though. It's important to note that achieving complete objectivity is a difficult task since everyone is informed by their backgrounds and experiences. While people in these disciplines should strive for objectivity, they should also consider how their experiences may affect their product and work product without including subjectivity. For example, members of a jury are instructed to analyze a case objectively and base their conclusions only on the facts presented. However, the court system can't avoid the fact that jury members are human beings, and every human being brings their own experience and bias to a situation. That's why courts have a jury selection process that attempts to eliminate jurors whose personal experiences may cloud their judgment. So, you know what's funny is, and I see almost everywhere that people say our legal system is objective. I hope I'm not the only one who feels this, but I think our legal system, our justice system, is so subjective, dude. It is based, it favors people who have money. It favors lawyers who are great at grandstanding and have the training to be salespeople. Our justice system is the definition of subjectivity. It is the opposite of objective. If it was objective, we would allow all facts, not facts just highlighting a defendant. That is subjective, not objective.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So is it just that we're trying to sell this social perception of our legal system being so fair and just, it's the most objective thing ever, when it's not? Weird, right?
Yeah.
It's super, super strange. And some benefits on subjective perspectives, on the other hand, play a vital role in like art, literature, therapy, theory creation, what direction to take an investigation, where to look for the next evidence, and how much evidence is important. Right? Those are big deals, like really, really, really big deals. How a theory could be perceived as valuable. There's a reason I have at times the presence of subjectivity in research is seen as a problem for achieving this is that. Okay, so this is an expert who, he's a scientist, right? And he did he did an experiment around subjectivity, and he found that it's literally impossible, it's literally impossible to have objectivity without subjectivity. And this is one of his excerpts that he has. So at times, the presence of subjectivity in research is seen as a problem for achieving objectivity in research. For some researchers, whether quantitative or qualitative, their goal is to remove subjectivity as it is seen to color the researcher's views and analysis of what is being researched. However, I argue this cannot be fully achieved, as our subjectivity influences how we interact with the research and study and world around us. Crazy, right? So let's dig into the logical fallacies of complete objectivity. Right? So what's funny is these are a lot of my flaws when I'm looking at things. So,
all right, let's hear all about your flaws. I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Common logical fallacies. 1, faulty cause. So someone that's hyper objective or logical assumes that because one thing follows another, the second thing was definitively caused by the first, also known as post hoc ergo propter hoc fallacy. Example, Sean broke his mother's mirror, and sure enough, he was in a car wreck the next week. And in crime, that isn't always the case.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like, if you're to say the front door and the back door were left open, Brian opened the front door, therefore he left open the back door, leaving.
It may not be it. Or there was a fight that night, and then later they were murdered. It had to be
the fight.
And it could not be.
Yep.
It could not be at all.
Yeah. 2, sweeping generalization. So assuming that what is true in most cases must be true in all cases. An example is, we can't hire this candidate because he is an ex-felon. And studies show that most ex-felons experience relapses. Yeah, that's a total flaw of mine.
Generalizations?
Sweeping generalizations. So, like, in the past, this happened multiple times, therefore it's always going to happen going forward.
Oh, yeah, that's you 100%.
For sure. Hasty generalizations. Assumes that a small piece of information is soundly representative of the whole situation. Example is, I don't like Thai food. The food I tried at this one Thai restaurant was just terrible, and I was sick for days.
Oh, that's literally something you said to me one of the first time I met you.
Duh.
Is that you don't like Thai food.
Yeah,
and then I made you eat Thai food, and you were obsessed with it and ate it like every day for like months.
Yeah, duh. I'm very aware of my flaws. I know these are me. I know. I'll be the first one to tell you. Faulty analogy, and this is a really important one. So, assumes that if two things are alike in some ways, they must be alike in all ways. Now, this is totally me. However, I think that statistically, they are more alike in all ways than they're different in some ways. Because I've thought about this before. I've known this was a flaw, and I think these things through, but I think the majority of the time, the rest of something is the same. So I'm always going to make that decision because statistically, I'm more likely to be right. So, but who knows?
No, I agree with that.
Crime doesn't work like that. And that's one of the downfalls when we're looking in investigations.
People just don't work like that a lot of times.
Yeah. Faulty sign assumes that one event is a reliable predictor of another.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, that would be because Brian Kohberger drove past the house 4 times, then he is the one that went in the house and did this crime. That's an uncommon thing to see. Therefore, he must be the one that committed the crime. Mm-hmm. Tautology defines an argument in a manner that makes it impossible to disprove.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
You are a disagreeable person, and if you disagree with me, it will just prove even more how disagreeable you are. So
that's just gaslighting, though. That's not a good example. That's the example they gave?
That is not gaslighting. That's not what the definition of gaslighting is. I know people try and say that's gaslighting, but that's not gaslighting. Gaslighting has intent, okay? You can't call someone... You can't say someone's gaslighting you unless their intention is to gaslighting you. It's literally built into the definition of gaslighting.
Okay.
So.
But I feel like that is intentional.
No. That's somebody creating their own hypothesis of the situation while arguing their point to you. That's why I relate to it. Yeah. Appeal to authority justifies an argument by citing a famous or popular person who supports the argument. I don't really do that, but... slippery slope assumes that a particular step invariably leads to a similar step, culminating in a negative outcome. Red herring attempts to divert attention away from the real issue. Appeal to ignorance uses a person's inability to disprove a claim as proof that the claim is right. Yeah, I don't really do those last 3 personally, but I'm curious if you guys think you do, because we have a lot of people. There's a lot of people who leave comments in our comments section that I can tell they are super objective, because like everything they say, I'm like, yes, that is so good. You know what I mean? Like they're literally thinking identical to how I think, and I love it. I love those comments.
Of course you do.
So, but the thing is I truly believe that people want to progress, right? And I'm not, it's not important to me that I'm prove I'm right. I really don't care if I'm right. What matters is if I'm expanding my knowledge. That's like obsession number 1, is I need to expand my knowledge. And in order to do that, it's important when we're investigating crimes and cases and details that we're able to find flaws to make ourselves more successful while doing this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And all that adds to, like, they have examples of compelling evidence, testimony, statistics, examples of such. It goes into talking about, like, how you can have emotional mastery while being objective. I mean, I think it's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Emotional mastery while being objective.
Yeah, because people that are like hyper logical or overly objective are usually like a good example is yin and yang. Okay, so if you're really heavy in black and black is objectivity, then you're going to be light and white is subjectivity. So you need to work to try and cater to both while staying strong in one.
Oh, you mean like being more balanced, like I said.
No, I don't mean that.
Yin and yang is balance.
I understand. Okay, bad example. But you need to, I say yin and yang not in the definition of being balanced,
Okay.
but being able to realize your strengths, knowing that these strengths have an equal and opposite reaction on the other side, causing weaknesses. So you just have to cater to and set a plan to not allow those weaknesses to hold you back.
Yeah, but that brings it more to balance. Like, for instance, gosh, this is like kind of gonna sound like a dumb example, but for instance, in beauty and hair and makeup, the ideal face shape is an oval, okay? A perfect oval. So a lot of makeup artists and hair artists or whatever, hairdressers will, whatever hairstyle looks best on you is whatever makes your face look the most oval. Whatever makeup, contouring, whatever looks best on you is whatever brings your face back to that balance. So, yes, I feel like we're arguing the same point here. You just don't like me saying it the way I'm saying it. Because you don't feel like it's I don't know. The way you're saying it is almost more positive. Like, look, this is not abnormal. These are just your strengths. And you just need to pick up the weaknesses and but it's really just bringing it more to a balance, even if you're never going to be perfectly balanced.
No, I'm just thinking more detailed. So, like, when you say balance, I'm assuming that what you're talking about is, like, in order to have more balance, you have to decrease one to raise the other. And I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about leaving your strengths where they are because more than likely it's an inherent trait that has been built around, trauma, life experiences, like all the that happen in our lives, but being able to understand that where your weaknesses are around subjectivity or objectivity. There are people out there going to be strong in others and different. Being able to have a plan to cater to that. Like, a good example is, like, I know we chose to do this show together, but let's say I just created Thought Riot Podcast, okay? But during creation, I was like, I'm not going to be able to relate to people, so I need somebody that is relatable to people. So I go and, you know what I mean? Do you get where I'm going with that?
Yeah, yeah. But it brings balance to the show.
I get what you're saying.
So
I understand that.
It's not taking the eggs out of this basket and putting them in the other to balance it out. It's just adding more to this side without taking any out of the other side is basically what you're saying.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Just creating a plan to have those flaws covered, not adding to them, because you're not going to be able to do that. You are not going to be able to add to your flaws from yourself without taking from your strengths. That just doesn't happen.
What?
Absolutely not.
So you're saying your strengths are going to be weakened by trying to
strengthen your weaknesses? Absolutely. That's what I believe. I do. Because I believe that...
That's very subjective, I feel like. That's an opinion.
Yeah, it is an opinion. Yep. But I think that's how it is. Otherwise, you would have people out there in the world that are just great at everything. We don't see that with anybody, ever. All people have equal amount of strengths and weaknesses. But let me know what you guys think.
So to be truly great, don't work on any of your flaws.
Yeah.
Or weaknesses.
Yeah. Build plans to not allow them to cause issues. Yeah. For sure.
Interesting. I learned something.
But let me know what you think.